Everyone. I haven't had any wine, so I'm going to speak as quickly as possible so that I can have a glass. I am from the European Commission, the Directorate Generale for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion. So the Commission is essentially the executive arm of the European Union. We originate the policy ideas based on the priorities set by the member states, by the countries, by the stakeholders, and then when they're agreed, when our proposals are agreed, we look after implementation. So specifically, my unit looks after this topic of skills and qualifications, and just during the day, at the beginning of the day, I wasn't really sure where my contribution would fit and how interested you all would be, but just so often during the day, the mixture of contributions and the wealth and the quality of them has been about just how education and training is changing, how learning is changing, this idea of transitions between education and training, which is kind of symbolized in the title of the unit where I work, Skills and Qualifications. So we're trying to create a sense of visibility around both, understanding around both, and the way that they're progressing. We're at an interesting phase. In our work in that we've been looking at some of the tools and services that we offer for the first time, and that we're taking what I hope will be an innovative approach to how we're delivering them. And really, I've been using you all today in that I've been learning a huge amount from you, and so much of the questions you've been raising, the topics and the issues are things that we all need to feed in now to where we want to take the tools and services that we offer for skills and qualifications. It's reassuring as well that the goals and the objectives we're all working towards are very, very similar. You know, that there's no danger of us as writing policy being removed from the real world. We want to enable lifelong learning, enable mobility, whether it's between countries, companies, courses of education, enable visibility of skills and qualifications with a full recognition of the fact that it's transforming and changing, and that we need to give visibility to all types of skills that can be acquired in any number of different settings. That's why I'm so interested in the open badges discussion here today. And our work involves engagement with member states, stakeholders, individuals. Our work can filter right down into the choices they make about education and training and their next opportunities. And we may be a pan-European organisation working with 28 countries, but our work does focus on regional activities, city-level activities, and only in the last fortnight was there a thematic week on the topic of cities and regions, where I'm seeing practical implementation and innovative use of learning and delivering education and training, and I'm just thinking of how many of the different types of things that they're doing would benefit from using open badges as a way of giving visibility. So I'm very interested in just taking these conversations back to our work. So the main thrust of our work for the last year has been a policy package called the New Skills Agenda for Europe. Basically, we're addressing so many of the issues that have been raised today, issues of skills mismatch, issues of skills shortages, issues of unemployability, but also issues of jobs that can't be filled because the perception of employers is that the individual people they're trying to recruit don't have the skills we need. So we're trying to create just a combination of circumstances whereby the EU can support responses to these issues, where we can play a role. And just as we've discussed, that learning, education, training, mobility doesn't occur within traditional parameters and borders as much anymore. In the same way, we see that the EU can play this role in adding this added value, bringing this EU dimension and supporting us all work as a collective. So this New Skills Agenda for Europe was launched in June, and one of the actions within it is to seek to provide better EU tools and services for skills and qualifications. So over a mixed period of time, we've been involved in various initiatives that involve delivery of front-end services, frameworks that occur in the background, whether they're for qualifications frameworks or a taxonomy of vocabulary and terms like ESCO, to work on delivering these in a combination with our stakeholders through their support with the member states, and to encourage dialogue and development of all these activities. But what's occurred is that they've been developed so often in an ad hoc way by different user groups, by different stakeholders. There's different levels of use and awareness, different approaches to implementation. So the starting point for our work in the last year was the fact that we wanted to bring more coherence, bring more simplification to our work on tools, on skills and qualifications, and also to modernize them in a way that they needed to be modernized very badly, and also to achieve this type of interoperability that we've talked about today. But for us, as well as this technical interoperability, we need legal interoperability and operational and organizational interoperability. So there's a lot of variables to bring together, but there's lots of things that we're proud of, lots of stakeholders and member states involved in delivering services, delivering information, and really we just want to set a vision to bring all this together and then to embrace so much of what you've been talking about today so that we can say that we're offering modern and effective tools and services. So this idea of a foggy window, a dewy window, not giving clear visibility, it serves two purposes, just that we want to give visibility to skills and qualifications. Again, just this idea that they are being acquired in different settings, different formats, and just the traditional sectors and ways of understanding need to evolve, and the way we talk about these things need to evolve, which was why the presentation on the future of education before lunch was just so refreshing, and I want to bring that language and some of the other terms we've been using today back into the rhetoric that we're writing. So the things that are causing this blurred view are the different range of tools and services that the EU has been involved with over a number of years. Just running through them here, you've heard reference to some of them during the day. Right up the top is ESCO, the taxonomy of terms to describe skills, competences, qualifications and occupations. A significant piece of work being led by the Commission, being supported by classification experts, member states, reference groups of people who are involved in us agreeing on agreed terms to describe these different concepts, and that we hope to roll out ESCO in early next year and see how it can be embraced by different users, different stakeholders in being able to support matching, support easier shared terms and understanding of qualifications. The English version of this taxonomy has been agreed and we're working on the translations. And so this significant piece of work, and we wanted to inform and act as a supporting mechanism to so many of the EU tools and services that we're developing, but also that it'll be available to the public so they can also embrace it, and it can just instill that sense of interoperability between what we're doing, but also between other types of services who are interested in any of the work where they're using terms linked to skills, qualifications and competences. Up in the top right is that there's a function that the Commission supports in the area of academic recognition, so recognition of qualifications or partial qualifications or learning for entry into education, higher education. We've been validation of non-formal and informal learning, a topic that came up a lot today. The Commission has been supporting member states to develop national level processes to facilitate the recognition of non-formal and informal learning with the deadline of 2018. So it's something that we're working actively with them on. Lots and lots of stakeholders groups established within countries and between countries on sharing best practice, developing practices, with the Commission there again in a supporting role. The European Qualifications Framework, it's a meta framework whereby we try to enable transparency of qualifications. So really, since I think one of the original Bologna Declaration in 1999, there's been reform of education systems working towards developing consistency, similar structures, credit, quality assurance, and similar ways of describing qualifications. The European Qualifications Framework wants to be a mechanism by which we can compare and understand qualifications from one education system to another. So for instance, countries are each working, we now have 39 countries that have referenced their qualifications frameworks to the EQF, so that for instance, if you're travelling with a bachelor degree from Ireland to Malta, you can understand by comparing the Irish qualifications framework through the EQF to the Maltese framework, just as a way of understanding as I say, the comparability of qualifications from different systems. Europass, we're going to be talking about this, but really one of the key planks of the new skills agenda has been a revision of the Europass framework I don't want to dwell too much on what it was in the past because essentially it needs modernization, but it started out as a tool to enable communication of skills and qualifications by individuals. So the most established of the documents is the Europass CV, which has had 65 million downloads. It's a template, common format template, available in all the 24 EU languages to enable people, as you can imagine, design their CV, and just that it would be easily understood in the through having that common layout. There's also a diploma supplement for describing the skills and learning outcomes associated with a higher education qualification, and a certificate supplement doing the same for vocational education and training qualification. These are issued by the awarding bodies. A language passport whereby an individual can self-assess their language competence. Again, their language competence, whether they've acquired it in any different type of setting, and with reference to a framework of reference for rating their language competence, they can complete this language passport. And finally, a mobility document, which is to capture the information on their experiences, the knowledge and the skills they may have acquired while on some type of work placement, an exchange program, or a different type of, an exchange organised by education and training institutions. So really what I'm going to be talking about for the rest of the presentation is the way that we do still want to instill and ensure these objectives of enabling people communicate their skills and their qualifications, but really how we need to take a new approach to it. It's under the remit of the name Europass. It's an established brand, but really we want to take a much more effective, simplified and modernised approach. The Learning Opportunities and Qualifications portal, which is a wealth of information but doesn't necessarily have high levels of use or awareness. There's information on learning opportunities, qualifications databases, guidance services, recognition processes, information on travelling and working abroad. All of this information provided to us by the Member States, all collected in this portal. Euroguidance, for 25 years, the Commission has been supporting a network of guidance counsellors who've been involved in promoting lifelong learning, promoting mobility, promoting the European dimension of education and training. Skills Panorama was also mentioned earlier. This is a database of skills intelligence, labour market trends and supply, providing information on national level, different sectors, professions and other analytical highlights and themes. EURES, which is a service for our public employment services, offering services for those who may be socially reliant or looking to become mobile between countries for employment purposes. The European Youth Portal for young people looking to travel abroad, find new opportunities in other countries. The Youth Pass, another type of documentation tool for volunteering experience, and EurAccess, a database of mobility for people who are involved in research and research work. So it's complex, there's a lot there, there's different brands, there's different ownership, there's different stakeholders involved, and we just see that there's a huge amount of resources going into this, huge amount of information behind all of it, and really that we want to take just a more simplified, coherent, strategic approach to how all of this works together. So the initiative that we focused on during the last year, 5 minutes? Okay, I'll never do it. Okay, so we've written a new Europass decision. We want it to be modern and innovative. We want Europass to be built on three planks involving services, information and standards. So services, we want Europass to embrace a new e-portfolio role. The CV has been established, but our feedback is that we need something more inclusive, that reflects how people manage their personal information, where they can potentially store something like their open badges, and also any other types of documents. We also want within that there be more of a developed role for self-assessment. We have a self-assessment tool for languages. We also have a self-assessment tool for digital skills. We're working on a self-assessment tool for entrepreneurial skills. And today you've just given me the idea that, of course, an open badges could have a role there in representing the outcomes of that self-assessment. So this would be kind of the key plank, the first item that we're working on in just making it a more user-friendly tool. We are happy with the CV editor and the elements of it, but it needs just to be modernized and just reflect the way people manage their information and just interact online. Information, you've seen the amount of information that we're collecting and is included in the Learning Opportunities and Qualifications portal, but it's on a separate website. It's not as easily searchable. People don't know about it. It should logically be included in the Europass site so that people can get everything that they need through a single location. We've been working on the user cases, we've been working on the typical stakeholders, and we want to present all of this information in a coherent, intelligible way. Finally, standards. If there's going to be this amount of information, if there's going to be a huge amount of data behind it, it needs to be organized in a coherent way. And obviously, we've talked about this a huge amount today, and there's been references to the metadata, the information collected through open badges, the potential for matching, the potential for enhancing skills intelligence, the potential for developing real-time labor market information that can filter into policy decisions, that can be given as feedback to education and training institutions designing programs, that can be given to guidance counsellors, that can even be fed down into individuals. And we want to work on ensuring that there's consistency and coherence to how we're collecting information and making it all available as an open source so that it can be used in other areas of the labour market, other areas of the education and training system. We will have ESCO behind it, bringing consistency to the terms used across 24 languages. But what's important is that we're not getting into an area blindly. We know that there are standards out there, established standards, so we're going to look at what is in the market, because we absolutely want whatever we get involved with to be accepted by the market, see what they're fit for purpose. We're going to be looking into, there's already an established standard used by our public employment service for a skills profile. Can this be developed or adapted? Is there value in standards for describing learning outcomes, learning opportunities for a CV? And just that these, again, would just enable this key interoperability feature, because there's just too much information at our disposal for it not to be easily exchanged, and support the range of services that we want to be able to offer. Our services want to be wide-ranging. These are ultimately public services funded by our governments, and we want it to reach all types and categories of users: disadvantaged, low skills, adults who are in employment and need to identify their upskilling needs, and the huge number of young unemployed people. So there's a broad range of tasks ahead of us in terms of the policy behind it, the negotiation that will go on over the next year, the continuation of what we've achieved, and that there's an effective transition to this new portal, and ultimately the operation of it all. There are 38 centres supporting the operation of Europass all around the EU and participating countries. We also have guidance centres, and we also have centres involved in the promotion of the European Qualifications Framework. So now we're starting the development, and that's why I'm really, really happy to be here today, because we're at this stage almost of a blank page, but not in a way that we're disregarding or disrespecting what we've achieved. But I'm very interested in the reaction from the room today of what type of public service, what type of role can this play? If we're starting out on this type of work, what would be your reaction? What type of role do you think a public organisation has in offering this type of service? And what is the way we can ensure it's modernised? Then an effective transition to this new service, and then ongoing consultation with groups like this to make sure that we are using the most up-to-date language, embracing technology. Just this idea of the dynamism in how we learn, we need to be able to reflect that in this. The Europass decision, the legal text that we've just produced, is going to be negotiated through the EU legislative process running into next autumn. The Europass Phase 1, focusing on the e-portfolio, some elements of the skills intelligence. We would like to see that in late 2017. We're actively working on that now. And then Europass Phase 2, which will enhance the self-assessment aspects, work on the real-time labour market information, and also just reflect the testing and the outcomes that we've had from Phase 1. We envisage that at some time in 2018. So this is a quick run through where we are, and please do approach me afterwards with any reactions or questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, William. Serge tells me we need to be out of here by 6:30 tonight because of another function that follows, and that's why I was cutting William a little short in that fascinating speech. I'm very much impressed by the way he's been able to integrate his day of learning into his speech. So I really encourage you to reach out to William. Thanks very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.